Okay guys, welcome to our first official flipped classroom video. And what I want to do here is I want to show you, as far as embedded assessment 1.1 goes, exactly what I expect from you in terms of how you're going to present this information and how you're going to turn this in. So two things that you're going to need to have up, and I'm going to give you the time to get those done. Number one, you're going to need to have your task sheet up. That can be found on Edmodo. It looks like this, okay? Make sure that you have access to this, because that's really going to help you in this video. So have your task sheet out, have your Embedded Assessment 1 sheet out, and I'm going to go ahead and start from the beginning. Even though most of us have done steps 1 and 2 already, I'm going to go ahead and start from the beginning. So if I look at step 1 here, it says to brainstorm an assumption that people will make about the American dream. From that assumption, develop a thesis that you intend to prove or disprove using your survey data. Now, I've already got this example here. American teenagers are more obsessed with money than American adults. And because I've already collected data for that, I'm going to go ahead and model the completion of that thesis. Okay? So just want to make sure that you are clear. This is my example thesis. You will be creating your own. Okay? So do not use American teenagers are obsessed with money. That was the model from class. And you need to have your own thesis for this. So there are many other options out there. And I don't want to hear that you can't think of one. So first things first, I've got my thesis here. American teenagers are more obsessed with money than adults. So now I need to answer these two questions as the first thing. This is the first thing that I'm asked to do. So what groups of people will you need to survey, and what information will you need to gather about your respondents? So when I go over to my sheet here, I want to make sure that my paper is properly headed. I expect to see EA11 for this. I want you to put your name, date, and period in the upper right-hand corner. This is the 6th today. And we're going to go to period 8, because I'm not in a period here. I'm going to skip the first line because I don't like this little area right here. I don't like writing in it. So I'm going to go ahead and skip that. And just right here, I'm going to write thesis, because I want to make sure that my thesis is visible. I want to make sure that my reader knows out the gate what my thesis is. So I'm going to say right here, American teenagers are more obsessed with money than adults. Okay, I've got my thesis down on the page, so I move on, and my first question I remember was, what types of people will I need to ask? Okay, will I need to give my survey to? So I know that because I have this question here, it's going to be best practice for me to go ahead and answer with complete sentences that restate my question. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and come up with a complete sentence that restates my question, that answers that. So the two types of people, and I'm just going to go with 2 here. The 2 types of people I could say that I will need to ask, but that sounds boring to me, so I'm going to say the 2 types of people who will be represented. On my survey are American teens and adults. I had to stop myself here because I wanted to capitalize teens and adults, because that's just a habit that I have. But as you can see up here, I actually should not have capitalized teenagers. I should have left that lowercase, because that is not a proper noun. So trying to model accurate language for you here today. The two types of people who will be represented on my survey are American teens and adults. So, that is a complete sentence that answers the question on to number 2. Okay? The second question was, what types of questions will I need to ask? So one thing that I'm interested in, and I don't have to get fancy with it, I can just write as I think. So one thing that I'm interested in and I want you guys to get in the habit of this, is just to kind of think out loud on the paper if you're stuck, okay? It's not a sin, it's not a crime, you can do that. One thing that I'm interested in is the income level of my respondent. Respondents. Okay? One thing that I'm interested in is the income level of my respondents. Let me think of another thing that I can say here maybe. Just because I have one complete sentence that answers the question and restates the question doesn't necessarily mean that I need to stop here. Okay? We're not shooting for the minimum. We're shooting for something above that. We want to really get all of the legwork done here up front so that when I go to design my survey, I don't really have to do as much thought. So if I think about it up front, that's the point of this question. So one thing that I'm interested in is the income level of my respondents. Now, I'm going to go ahead and think of another question to ask. So what's another question I'm going to ask? It might be relevant, and again, I'll just write as I think, okay? It might be relevant to ask how many teenagers the respondent knows or talks to. Kind of cramming that in there. Talks to on a regular basis. Thought behind this being, I don't want to hear from somebody what they think about American teenagers if they don't speak to any American teenagers. That's irrelevant data. So I could go on here, and I would encourage you to go on here if you feel like that is necessary. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to go ahead and move on into my model. So the next thing that I'm going to do, if I take a look at my task sheet here, step 3, I just noticed that this says step 2. Step 3 on my task here should reflect my, I'll just delete this one, my survey. So if I choose to, not if I choose to, I'm going to have to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my survey that we completed together in class on my drive and show you. If you want to know more about creating an actual Google form, you need to see the video on creating Google Forms. I'm not going to go over that in this model because I do need to try to make this video somewhat short. So if you need help creating this survey, I encourage you to go on Edmodo and look for the Using Google Forms video. That will tell you step by step how to create your survey, okay? Being that I've already got data for this one, I'm going to go ahead and navigate over to that. Here we go. Now, if I look on my task sheet here, it tells me that I need to use this format to analyze my data. So if I have access to a printer and I know that I can do this, I'm going to have a really easy time. I just type it in and I'm good to go. I just literally would highlight this blank, type in 28 respondents, whatever I had, and I would be set. But I'm going to